the availability of courtroom E, which is under the purview of another judge, and I don't know her schedule. So I don't know the answer to that question.
And Judge, if we could come to some agreement so that we know, I mean, the jury could be out a long time, a little time, and they'll have questions, but would it be all right if counsel did not hang around right here, at least after the first hour or so, that where you get questions? The question is, I think everybody's about 15 minutes from here, but what's your view?
Here's my view. I always ask the attorneys to give the clerk their cell phone numbers in case there's a question or whatnot.
Right.
I'm not going to say you have to stay in the courthouse, but please, if it's a question, I don't want to have to wait an hour to get everybody together.
We will not.
I know. I'm just saying. I know around lunchtime it might be a little bit different, but for generally speaking, if you're somewhat close, I would appreciate that.
We'll cancel the fishing trip.
Ms. Corrales, I think you were trying to stand up.
I didn't know if Your Honor had something else you wanted to address. I just have some exhibits I need for my first witness.
Let's go through as many as we can get.
Okay, great. Well, if I could direct us to specific ones I need for this morning. So if we go to page 3 of the one that was forwarded to the court and counsel this morning. Can you bring it up 3217-534?
You said 3217?
Yes, it's on page 3. So this is there's 5 similar to this, Judge, and I'll give the exhibit numbers as we go through them. But essentially, they're Jack Kowalski's emails to Kathy, giving her the times or the dates that he wants to visit, and her response. The admissions by the plaintiff and plan of intent by Ms. Beatty.
Plaintiffs?
No objection.
Okay.
So glad I can just sit here.
Sorry?
I'll receive into evidence 3217-534.
534. All right, 3217-568. We'll redact that cell phone, Judge. Sorry. You want to take that down? Can we take that down, Judge? I apologize.
Probably too late for the
My apologies.
internet.
Can you redact that, please?
Mr. Kowalski probably need to get a new cell phone now.
It's already here.
Okay. Any objection to that with exception of the cell phone number?
He can put it back up.
No, I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Do you need to see it again, Mr. Anderson?
I guess if it's possible to redact it, but if it's a pain to redact
No,
it.
it's not. He can do it. Yeah. Can you put it back up then? 3217-568. No. Was there no objection?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
3217. Can you look at 598 before you give it to everybody and make sure?
Wait a second. So 568, there's no objection to?
We put it back up to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
We are.
I
3217.
don't think we have an objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Court receives into evidence 3217-568 as redacted. And again, let's make sure we get the clerk the redacted version.
598.
No objection.
Court receives in evidence 3217-598. Madam Clerk, did we get on Friday, those that we redacted? Did you get the redacted versions, or are we still waiting on any documents from Friday? Or last week, I should say. Yeah, you got it? Okay. Thank you. What's next, Ms. Quarles?
3217-716.
No objection.
Court receives in evidence 3217-716.
3217-803.
No objection.
Court receives in evidence 3217-803.
Okay, 3217-784. It's an email from Mr. Kowalski at the bottom to Kathy inquiring about the dresses that he had dropped off. Kathy's response. And his response to that.
No objection.
There. Is there anything with respect, I see Ms. Salisbury's email, is there?
What do we need?
You want to redact that?
No, I'm just asking the plaintiffs. I don't know if it's necessary, I'm just.
Well, hang on. It's true. I did notice it was from Debbie Salisbury.
No,
But it's
it
not-
was one of the recipients of the email, not
Right.
from her.
Would you like us to redact the attorney?
I actually don't think, well, yes, redact the attorney, please. Thank you, Judge. It's fine.
So as redacted, the court will receive into evidence Exhibit 3217-784.
Okay. 3217-850 and 851. So the court may recall that plaintiff put in emails regarding photographs that were taken prior to my going to court on January 6th. This is in the same stream of emails, but they didn't put these in, so we think for completion they need to put in that they're addressing the photos that were taken when she got back from court.
No objection.
Court receives into evidence 3217-850 and 851A.
Is there 851A, does that indicate that there's
Oh,
been
yeah,
some
we
redactions?
removed, there is. Would you like to see it without
Yes,
the
please.
redaction? Sure. Do you have it without the redaction?
I have it. I have it.
Okay. Great.
This is A.
Yeah, I need it without the redaction. Thank you. Here you go. Here's the redaction. I think we want to talk to CPI. There's an order.
we do have an issue with the redactions. We'd like some of what's been redacted to be returned.
Which,
This is fine. But this sentence, I think, should stay.
we'll have to talk to the court about it. I don't have the let me see if I have another copy, Judge. Do you have another copy?
I have another copy.
Great. Your Honor, can I approach?
Sure.
So I'm handing 32170851 without the redaction.
And can you put up the version with redaction so I can see what we're talking about?
Yes. So Judge, I redacted after return because I thought the next sentences were dealing with, I think, why don't you speak as to what you want to include?
Judge, let me talk to him.
So, Your Honor, if you have the unredacted version in front of you, I understand that the defense efforts at redactions would be to take out issues that are only relevant to the dependency proceeding. If you look below, it says Nancy and Debbie. This would be an internal email from Ms. Beatty, so it would be a party admission. And that next sentence is what we would require to stay, which is Maya has a FaceTime visit with her mother at 11 and 5 tomorrow and Sunday for 30 minutes each that must be supervised by a social worker. That sentence should stay. It's not the dependency proceeding. The restrictions below can be redacted, but that sentence in and of itself needs to stay.
I think it goes to Chapter 39, Judge, which is why I redacted it.
It, in fact, goes directly against Chapter 39 dependency order that the defense insisted upon, which was that the mother was to have unsupervised FaceTime calls during this period of time.
Actually, the order says they can be supervised
Yeah, I was going to say at that time it was able to be supervised.
as of December something.
Yes, it's permissive. Ms. Beatty's position here is that it's required to be supervised by her. So we think it's relevant to the restrictions Ms. Beatty felt necessary to impose on these calls.
Judge, I think it's Chapter 39.
Well, I will agree with Mr. Whitney. We can redact out the 1 through 5, but the decision to supervise is permissive within the order, so I don't think that that's going to run afoul of trying the Chapter 39 case in this case. So leave in. Now, what about this reference to the state attorney?
No, we stopped at they were okay, I think.
I'm asking Mr. Whitney.
Yes, Your Honor, we're okay with the balance of the first paragraph being redacted as is. We're okay with the second paragraph being redacted. We'd like Nancy and Debbie left in, and then that sentence we just discussed.
Yeah.
May I have that copy
Yes,
back?
ma'am. So as just outlined, we'll make that, is this going to be A or B?
Yes. It's 3217.
We probably need to make this one B, because you had a previous, did we already mark the A? So it'll have to be B.
Okay. So 3217850 and then 851B. Judge, that's, I believe, all the ones I need in for my first, oh no, I'm sorry. 3403, 1 to 3. And we could probably just do 2 of them, go sit down. Actually, we'll just do 2 and 3, please. Judge, these are important because they involve the Christmas dresses that were dropped off, and these were the dresses that she was wearing. You can see that they were dropped off on the 23rd, the one's taken on the 24th, and one's taken on the 25th.
I'm looking to the plaintiffs.
No objection.
So we'll just put in 2 and 3.
2 and 3, number 1's not going in.
Yes, we don't need 3. And then,
So the court receives into evidence 3403, numbers 2 and 3.
thank you. And then the next one is 3405. They are Ms. Beatty's performance evaluations for 2015 and 2016. The ones that the plaintiff had.
We object for obvious reasons.
I haven't read it, so tell me what the obvious reason is.
Well, Judge, they don't have the 2017, and so what they're trying to do, this would all be 403 and irrelevant because these were prior to the time period when all of this occurred, and they don't have the one for 2017. So by putting in ones from 2014, 15, 16, they are trying to give the jury an impression of something which we cannot counter because we don't have the ones from 2017. There was a depot this weekend, and it was a computer glitch. But for whatever reason, there isn't one. And so being able to put these in without us having the opportunity to see the 2017 is completely unfair. How are we going to do it?
So what happened, what was the outcome of the deposition?
I'm happy to address it, Your Honor. We did the deposition yesterday of the HR personnel. She confirmed that because of the changeover from a paper system to an electronic system, that they went from reviewing all employees on their anniversary date to just reviewing employees on the fiscal July 1 to July 1. So all employees who fell within the review period between July and December just had their review roll over to the next July. So Kathy Betty is not unique in having a gap between her last review date when the next one would start on July 1st, 2017. She testified that what they did for performance reviews and evaluations and merit increases, that the supervisor would have the option to put a note in their file that if the employee was exemplary, they would get more than their standard percent raise. If they were falling below, they could be below. And in Kathy Betty's case, there was no supervision email recommending either something above or below. And that deposition happened yesterday.
The deposition confirmed that there is no performance review for Kathy Beatty from the period of November 2016 to July 2017. I have a different understanding than Mr. Shapiro. What we learned in the deposition was that Johns Hopkins is taking the position that they were implementing a new performance review system between July 2017 and December of that year. Since Ms. Beatty's performance review typically fell in October, there was no performance review performed for her for the period between October 2016 and October 2017, immediately after her receiving a disciplinary action in her personnel record. She did, however, get a pay raise on schedule, and then her evaluations, once this new system was apparently implemented, resumed on the October anniversary, and that's confirmed by the October 2018 review that we have. So, the fact is, there's a missing performance review for the majority of the relevant admission. Ms. Beatty was not reviewed. So, along with Mr. Anderson's objection, we object to putting in what is here because 2017 doesn't exist.
Just to correct one issue, Judge, she was reviewed again. She, like all employees at the hospital, their next review started July 1, 2017. She was reviewed annually, July to July, going forward. And they do have, for what it's worth, I mean, I know it's after the fact, we did turn over her next review period, which was July 1, 2017 through July 1, 2018.
And was there a review in October of 2018?
No, it's not July.
No, it just continues July to July to July to July for the rest of going forward. That's system-wide at the hospital. That was not unique to Ms. Petty.
If you want to discuss the deposition more, there was a protective order filed and there was a dispute during the deposition. I don't know if you want to take that up now or later.
The problem was, Judge, we wanted to know whether this applied to anybody else.
Oh, I have the email showing that it applies to everybody. I'm happy to forward it. I can do that sometime.
Well, was that subject inquired about, or did you all shut that down?
Thoroughly. The only thing that they start,
Let's not laugh.
I'm sorry.
there's a transcript of what happened, so Your Honor can read it. The deposition went for about 40 minutes. Where I issued a protective order was when they were asking for all HR policy procedures, all policies and procedures on performance reviews from the beginning of time until now, inquiries that would blow open discovery. The question that the court allowed discovery on was the question of why doesn't Ms. Beatty have a written performance review from October through July that was thoroughly explored. The HR representative asked all those questions. There's a transcript of this.
And the policy is somehow sacrosanct that we can't honor the policy?
If there's a policy they want to see, I'm happy to produce a policy, but they were,
You just said that you did a protective order in the deposition when they asked for the policies.
of policies governed, their request for the corporate representative deposition, which we received late Friday night, was for all policies and procedures governing HR and performance. I would think that's fairly wide-ranging and extreme, no time limit. But if you want me to get the policy,
I mean, obviously, we're not looking for 1985, but, within a couple of years before and after the issue. You okay, Mr. Hunter?
no, I just got ready, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
I'm fine.
I'm happy to, if there's a policy they want to identify, I'm happy to do it.
I don't understand. The depositions are, of course, wider ranging than what happens in trial. This is an issue. I don't understand why we're having to spend any court time on it. Give them the policies in the 3 years before and 3 years after the issue.
And if I may, Your Honor,
The time.
the deponent confirmed, we tried to get her to identify the relevant policies. She confirmed she relies on a mix of Johns Hopkins All Children's policies and Johns Hopkins proper policies. So we'd like the policies she was referencing so we can compare what happened here to what the internal policy was.
Okay, let's do that. Let's get it by, 5 o'clock today?
So the policy governing employee review, is that what the court would?
It's a performance evaluation, and you're objecting to turning over the policies on performance evaluation?
Their request was for all HR policies. It wasn't for just performance evaluation.
I don't want to get into another issue with, you're asking for the risk management department and not the risk management committee. I want to spend
I got it.
7 months like we did on that, which was beyond what we needed to do. Just, it's relevant, it's relevant, 3 years before, 3 years after.
That's right.
That being said, Judge, what about this exhibit?
I
Do I
don't know
just
if I
not
can
use
rule
it
on
with
it
me?
yet.
Here's
Ms.
my.
Cross, I'm not sure I can rule on this until I know what happened at the deposition,
And
which
that's-
apparently was shut down.
That's fine, Judge. I do not need to talk with Ms. Beatty about this. I'll just put it later on. I'll move it in, as long as they're saying I don't need her to.
I'm not moving it in until I know what happened at the deposition.
All right, so we will revisit that later. Judge, that's the only exhibits I need from Ms. Beatty. I would like to address with the court, just so we know on timing, if the court wants to, the plaintiff's motion for more time.
Well,
Or not.
considering
It's
2 minutes before we're supposed to bring the jury in.
Okay. It's more their issue than mine, not just, that's okay.
Anything else that we have to take up before we bring in this jury?
I don't believe so, Your Honor, from the plaintiff's side.
Anything else from the defense side?
No, Your Honor.
Let's go ahead and get the jury.
Good morning. Greetings. Well, greetings to you as well. Maybe I should say salutations and greetings. I want to confirm while you're away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves, you did no investigation, and you received no information. Is that all correct? And no one approached you about this case, is that correct? Correct. And have you seen any media coverage about this case? Ms. Rose, could you call your next witness?
The defense would call Kathy Beatty. Oh, sorry. Can you approach, please?
Sure.
Right. Can you approach, please?
Let's let the clerk swear the witness in first.
Face the clerk and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Come this way.
Good morning. Would you go ahead and state your name?
It's Catherine R. Beatty, B-E-D-Y.
Okay, can you make sure you're speaking into the microphone a little bit?
Sure, is that better?
That is better, thank you. Ms. Beatty, are you a licensed social worker?
I am,
And how long have you been a licensed social worker?
for 22 years.
And do you know under what chapter you're licensed?
491?
Are you a medical provider?
No,
Are you a medical doctor?
no,
Are you a nurse?
no,
Do you provide medical care?
no.
Okay, all right. Ms. Beatty, the jury's heard about you. I heard your name, and there's been some discussion about you in court. Are you in fact the social worker that was assigned to Maya Kowalski while she was in the All Children's Hospital from October to January, October 16 to January 17?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Were there other social workers that were also involved,
Yes,
but were you considered the primary social worker?
yes.
By the way, Ms. Beatty, did you and I meet last night?
We did.
For how long?
For about an hour and a half.
Let's get a little background. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Clearwater. I was born and raised in Clearwater.
Where did you go to school?
I started out in college at FSU and then returned to Tampa and went to USF and did my master's at USF.
And why did you leave FSU?
I was on a swim scholarship and I hurt my shoulder.
Did you say swimming?
Swim scholarship.
All right. And what was your bachelor's in from USF?
In psychology?
Okay. Can you take us forward with your employment from the time you got until you get your master's? So start with your your bachelor's in psychology, and take us forward.
I came out of college and went to work for Frito-Lay in their management training program. I worked for them for about 3 years and was recruited by Procter & Gamble to work in their beverage division. And from their beverage division, I went to work for Vicks, which P&G bought Vicks. And I worked for Vicks in account settings, so I would call on grocery stores and grocery chains in order to set up their ads and their product for cough and cold and suntan. And I did that for almost 11 years.
Did that involve a lot of traveling?
It did. I was on the go. I was in an airplane at least 3 or 4 days a week.
Why did you go back to school?
I did. My mom passed away in 1993 and my dad in 94. And I had young children at home. It gave me an opportunity to go back to college. So I think it was in 97 I went back, and I had to take some prerequisites to do a master's in social work. So I took some of the prerequisites and then started my master's in social work in 98.
And when did you graduate with your master's?
In 2000.
Okay. So you mentioned children. Do you have a family?
I do.
Can you tell us just generally?
Sure. I have a daughter. She's 37, and she's in Tampa. And then I have 2 stepsons, and I also have my sister. I had 2 brothers. There were 3 brothers, but 2 of them have since passed away. So I have an older brother, and my younger sister and I. We're all very close, and it's a very large extended family. I have a nephew who has 2 children, and he's the stepfather to another child who she has a little baby. So we have a big extended family.
Do you have grandchildren?
I do. I have 2.
Let me ask you, so we're going to go through, we're going to finish your work history in a minute, but and I'm going to take you through some of the things that have occurred during the time that Maya Kowalski was in the hospital. It's 3 months. We're not going to talk about everything. Okay. So I'll try to direct you to when and what I'm talking about. Just let me know if you're confused or if I've confused you with my question. Okay.
Sure.
But you talked about your family, your grandkids, your extended family. Did you at any time ever tell Maya Kowalski that you wanted to be her mother?
No, absolutely not.
Let's talk about your social work history.
Mm-hmm.
So after you got your master's, where did you go to work?
I went to work at Suncoast Center, and I had been working there during graduate school and also did an internship at Suncoast Center during graduate school. So when I finished, In graduate school, we had to write a grant, and I wrote a grant to Family Continuity, which was one of the child DCF community-based care organizations. And I wrote a grant to Teen Services. It was working with teens that were aging out of foster care to help give them the skills that they needed in order to leave foster care at the age of 18.
So what happened when you wrote, did you get the grant?
Yeah, I wrote the grant for one person, and we ended up getting the whole program. So it was 4 therapists, 2 case managers, and myself as a manager.
Okay. And what was the point of that program?
It was to help kids that are getting ready to turn 18 to get the services that they would need in order to leave foster care, because at 18 you leave foster care.
Okay. What was your next role with respect to Suncoast Center?
So I also wrote another grant for diversion services in Pasco County, and that role was to keep kids out of foster care. And I had 2 therapists who were working for me there. Through that time, there was a shortage of people to work with therapeutic foster care kids, which are kids that have severe behavioral problems. So I took on a couple of those cases, and I worked with those kids and then became manager of that program. And so I managed the therapeutic foster care program, which probably had about 40 beds, along with teen services and diversion services.
So how long in total were you with Suncoast?
11 years.
What was your next place of employment?
So there was a position through Healthy Start, which works with moms that are drug abusing. And I worked with them through OBGYN, which was a group of 5 obstetricians and gynecologists and 3 nurse midwives.
And what was your role there?
So for every new pregnancy that came into the office, I did a small evaluation to see if there were resources that were needed. And for some people, they didn't need anything, and for some people, they needed quite a few things.
And how long did that position last?
So when I started there, it was a private practice. All Children's bought that private practice out, and I worked in the OBGYN for another 2 years, and then I went to work in the hospital in the pediatric intensive care unit 2 years later. So all together from OBGYN through when John Hopkins then bought out All Children's, I think it was almost 12 years.
Okay. So when did you start in the All Children's PICU?
Oh, that would have been,
Does it sound 2009?
yeah,
Right?
something like that.
And can you, the jury's heard PICU, but just go ahead and remind them, what does PICU stand for?
Sure, it's the pediatric intensive care unit.
So what was your role as a social worker in the PICU?
So for every new child that was admitted, I did an evaluation to see how the family was doing, how the child was doing, what resources were needed. Many times our families came from far away, and they might need lodging, they might need food, they might need gas to get home. So I would provide those resources. I would also work with case management on discharge plans.
When you're the social worker at the PICU, were you involved with DCF cases?
Oh, yes. When I worked for Suncoast Center with Therapeutic Foster Care Program, all of our kids had to be in foster care to be there. So I worked extensively with DCF and with the court system during those 11 years.
And then when you're at All Children's with PICU, did you also have, were there patients there that were, in fact, DCF
Yes.
patients?
Yes.
If there's a shelter order in place with respect to a patient at All Children's, what's the protocol with respect to their name being included in the registry or on the door?
Sure.
Section 39 and also legal conclusion.
So if we get a shelter order, the very first thing we do is put it into the medical chart. We call downstairs and take that person off of the registry so that nobody can just visit who isn't cleared to visit. We also take their name off of the door to their room.
Okay. Can I see Exhibit 2278 036, please. It's in evidence. Ms. Beatty, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
Okay. This dated November 8, I can see, 18, 2016. Okay. And this was right up to you regarding corrective action notice.
Correct.
Do you recall the circumstances around this?
I do.
Can you go ahead and tell us about that?
I was covering the PICU and the cardiovascular unit, and there was a family that was discharging out of the CV, the cardiovascular unit, and the case manager at the time had offered them or said that I would provide for them a $50 gift card for gas. They lived 5 miles away from the hospital, and technically you can't give them that amount of money for gas. I found out that it was for food, and they really didn't need it for gas, and so I went to my supervisor and asked if we could provide something. I was told we couldn't, and I went back to talk to Pam, who is the case manager for the CV, and I lost my cool for a few minutes. And
Well, why were you so upset?
because I was going to have to go back to the family and tell them that we couldn't provide the help that had been given. She said we would just give you this, and I felt bad that this family didn't have food. I was able to provide at least a list of resources of food banks, but it's very hard to go back to a family who is struggling.
Not your best moment?
Not my best moment.
Did you in fact apologize to the employee?
Immediately, I sent an email and I went down and told my supervisor exactly what I had done.
Let's talk about, so you started there in 2009, and when did you leave All Children's?
I left All Children's, it was during COVID, so I think it was 2020.
When did you first get involved with Maya Kowalski?
So I believe that Maya came in on a Friday. I was not there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I would have on Monday.
Does October 10th, 2016 sound familiar?
It does.
Okay. Can we put up 1001-2026, please? We can make that larger. Okay. So do you recognize this as part of the hospital chart regarding Maya Kowalski?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. And it says social work signature, that's you?
Yes.
Okay. And this was on October 11th, 2016, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to direct your attention to under actions taken or intervention completed. Is this a note that you would have put into the system?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. And there's, it says social worker contacted by medical team, parents have agreed to stay, team's concerned mother will change her mind. I would like to address that for a minute.
Sure.
At some point, on October 13th, 2016, Maya became sheltered there by DCF, correct?
Correct.
All right. So this is before Maya is sheltered. This is October 11th.
Right.
Was your first interaction with the parents actually on October 10th?
Yes.
Okay. So between October 10th and October 13th, did the parents ever indicate to you that they wanted to leave and take Maya?
They didn't indicate that to me. They did to the medical team.
Did they ever tell you that they wanted to leave?
No.
At this point in time on October 11th, was it your understanding that the parents had agreed to stay?
Yes.
All right. There's also some discussion in this note about Nemours. Do you recall being involved in attempting to obtain a transfer to Nemours?
Yes.
And without going into all the details, do you recall ultimately what occurred with that attempt?
Yes. So we had a meeting. The attending for that week was Dr. Michelle Smith. We had a meeting with Mrs. Kowalski and Nemours, Dr. Santana through Nemours. And it looked like it was a go. I got all the case manager and I got all the paperwork together. And then when we actually were talking to her about the actual transfer, she said no, she wasn't going to go.
By she, you mean Mrs.
Mrs.
Kowalski
Kowalski.
would not agree? Okay. All right, can I have
I'm sorry,
100?
I'm sorry, Ramsey, what was this exhibit number that's up right now?
Sure, it's, well, I have to look now. 2026.
Thank you.
Sure. Can we put up 1001 2024?
Can you repeat that a little louder?
Sure, I'm sorry. 1001 2024. Is this another note by you, Ms. Beatty?
It is.
If we can make the actions taken, well, all right, thank you. At this point in time, you had spoken to Mrs. Kowalski,
Yes.
Beata, right? And she indicated she was unhappy with the CPI investigation.
Yes.
And I don't want to get into that, but did she also report to you that she was happy with the care being provided to Maya?
Yes, according to my note, yes.
Okay. We can go to the next, I'm guessing it'd be 2023. Actually, I guess it'll be 2025, sorry. Is this the rest of your note? Yeah. And so there was also some conversation about educational services for the patient. Do you recall that?
I do.
Okay. And you received a call from an attorney for Mrs. Kowalski?
I did.
Okay. And what was the end result of that conversation about school services?
So Mom felt that Maya was too sick at this point, even though the attorney had called me. Mom felt that she was too sick to start
Objection,
school.
hearsay.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So on October 13, 16, Maya is now sheltered. Can we have 1001 2023? Okay, is this your note,
Yes,
Ms.
it
Beatty?
is. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
If we could have the actions taken or intervention completed. Thank you. So let me ask you this. With respect to your role when Maya was sheltered, who was tasked with having to tell Mr. Kowalski that he had to leave?
I was.
And who had to go in and tell Maya that her father had to leave and her mother could not visit?
So Dad and I both went back into the room to explain to Maya that he had to leave and that Mom couldn't visit.
And what was Maya's reaction that you recall?
She was very angry. She was hurt. She was sad. She was crying. But she was also yelling and screaming.
And what do you recall her yelling?
She was calling the medical team and us effing assholes.
Did Mr. Kowalski comply with the information and the request that he had to leave?
He did.
Any issues at all with Mr. Kowalski?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you, Claude. Were you, throughout the 3 months that Maya Kowalski was in the hospital, the one that had to tell Maya bad news?
Yes. Typically, CPI or the DCF people would call me and ask me to go in and let Maya know what was going on with certain parts of the court proceedings.
Do you recall an instance where you had to tell Maya that she wasn't going to be able to go home for Christmas?
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell us about that, please.
Maya was really excited about Christmas, and there are a lot of things that go on at the hospital during Christmas, so I got a call or an email from the CPI, I don't remember which, and the CPI asked me to go in and let Maya know that she wasn't going to be able to go home for Christmas. It was a really hard conversation. I went in and explained that to Maya. Maya was so upset. She was crying. She was just devastated. And she was just sobbing. She asked if she could sit in my lap, and I said, sure. I hugged her. She cried for a good 10 minutes or so. And she was mad, and she was saying all kinds of things about wanting to talk to the judge. And that was really it.
What was your intent in having Maya sit on your lap?
Just to provide comfort and support to her at that time.
Is that the only time that you had Maya sit on your lap?
Yes.
Did you ever take Maya down to the chapel by yourself?
No.
Did you ever put Maya on your lap down in the chapel?
No.
Let's talk about how it is that you stayed with Maya and was her social worker on the 7th floor. At that time, back in 2016, you were assigned to the PICU
Correct.
and the cardiac
In the cardiac ICU.
and the cardiac ICU. So how is it that you then followed Maya?
So the day that Maya was moving from the PICU to the 7th floor, my supervisor called me and asked me to stay on the case because I had good DCF experience with managing the shelter orders and things like that from my previous job, but also in the PICU.
Can we put up 2123010? So this is an evidence. You see the email from Nina? Who's Nina at the bottom?
Nina was the social worker for the 7th floor.
Okay. And she's asking whether or not you're going to continue to follow Maya?
Correct.
And your response was you'll continue to follow?
Correct.
Was there, with respect to Nina, was there a reason that was expressed to you as to why why your boss wanted you to follow Maya?
I certainly wasn't going to explain to Nina why I was being asked to follow the case.
Oh, Nina, sorry.
It's okay.
And what was the reason that?
She didn't feel that Nina had the experience with DCF, and this was turning out to be a very intensive case.
All right, thank you. Throughout throughout the time that Maya was there on the 7th floor, did she have any religious articles in her room?
Yes.
Can you talk about that, please? Tell us what you observed.
Sure. So she had a lot of prayer cards, and she had her rosary. Maya prayed every morning. Some mornings, if I went by the room, she would be doing her prayer cards, and I would knock on the door, and she would say, either I could come in or can I come back later?
What is your faith?
I'm Roman Catholic.
Are you practicing?
I am.
Would you at some times pray with Maya?
Yes. Yes. Maya was doing a rosary one day, and she was doing a rosary, I can't remember who it was for, but we sat and prayed the rosary together.
Would you, as the social worker that was assigned to Maya, also get involved in making sure people got escorted to her room?
That was part of the policy and procedure, is that any child that was under state care had to be escorted. The visitors had to be escorted to the room and then escorted out of the room and back down to the 1st floor.
Okay. And who was it? Was it DCF that would be determining who was approved to visit and who was not?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall in October 21st, first of all, would you sometimes get contacted when you weren't even working
Yes.
for people to say, hey, somebody's here
Yes.
to clear? Okay. Do you recall making arrangements for the teacher, Jackie Dieter, to get in on a Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. And how would you do that? Who would you then communicate with to make sure that they knew to make sure the teacher was escorted?
So either I would put it on my handoff report, which I would do at the end of each day. We did a handoff report, or if the social worker in the hospital would call me at home and ask is this person allowed to come? But I think I put it in a handoff report.
Would you sometimes send emails?
Yes, yes.
And they would be directed to the social worker that was
That was
on-
working, yeah.
Okay, all right. Now, was it your understanding that at least in October until November 10th, I think it was November 10th, that Mom, Mrs. Kowalski, was not allowed any contact with Maya
Yes.
pursuant to the court orders?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Did there come a time when, during that time frame, when Mrs. Kowalski wasn't allowed any contact, where the phone was removed from Maya's room?
Yes,
Okay. And do you recall receiving an email about that?
yes. Nancy.
Were you the one that removed the phone?
No, Nancy Venn, the social worker that was there on the weekends, removed the phone.
And what was the reason that she removed the phone?
Mrs. Kowalski had made lots of phone calls to Maya on I guess it was a Saturday because that was the day Nancy worked. And there wasn't supposed to be any contact. So the phone was removed.
Now, during this time frame, October 13th to November 10th, make sure I have the date right, I'm pretty sure it's November 10th, was Jack Kowalski entitled to have supervised visits?
Yes,
And who would be supervising those visits?
DCF.
And during that time, when these supervised visits, who was determining what Mr. Kowalski could and could not bring into the room?
DCF.
Do you recall an instance where Mr. Kowalski wanted to bring in communion and he was not allowed to do that by DCF?
Yes.
Do you recall that there was a time when a Dr. Duncan was coming to see Maya?
Yes.
Okay. And was that something that you made sure that you emailed and made sure people were aware that she was coming?
I did.
Okay. All right. Do you recall a time when Maya had written a letter that she wanted to send to the judge?
Yes.
And what did you do with that letter?
So any communications that Maya wanted to send to the judge, I would take it, scan it in, and email it to the case manager, the DCF case manager.
Now, once Mr. Kowalski was allowed unsupervised visit, were you involved at all in arranging for that?
So all I did for that is the court had asked Mr. Kowalski to notify us of when he wanted to come and visit and what times. So he would send me an email or I think an email, and then I would send the email along with those dates and times to whoever was working on the 7th floor.
It would be the bedside nurse that you would.
It could be the bedside nurse or the charge nurse.
All right. Can we bring up 3217534? Okay. So can you make it a little larger, please? For my eyes, if nobody else. And so is this what you were referring to, that you would get an email from Mr. Kowalski telling you the dates and times that he wanted to visit?
Correct.
Okay. And then your response was that you're not in, but you'll make sure the 7th floor knows you're coming?
Right.
Okay. Can we bring up 3217568? Similar, is this an email that you would get, and below there are all the dates in November that Mr. Kowalski was going to come visit?
Correct.
And your response was to do what?
Objection leading to
Sustain.
What would be your response to this email? Or what was your response?
So I simply said, "Hi Jack, all is well. Thanks for keeping me in the loop on the dates," and that I would forward those on.
Okay. Can we see 3217598? This is another request by Mr. Kowalski.
Yes.
And did you understand December 1-14 mean 1 through 14th?
I'm not sure what I thought. I thought 1 and 14.
Okay, all right. But anyway, these are the dates that Mr. Kowalski chose that he wanted to come in and visit.
Sure.
And you were not dictating what dates he could come in?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
3217716, please. Now, this is a request for a visit after 6 and then on Saturday. Would those be arranged?
Objection leading.
So he's requesting a 1-hour supervised visit, and he's letting me know that his sister-in-law is available for those visits. So yes, I would have still let the 7th floor know that.
Okay. And 3217803? Again, additional dates that Mr. Kowalski was telling you that he was going to come visit, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you, Clint. Do you, are you aware that, well, let me just ask you this way. Are you aware that at one point a Detective Graham came and met with Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Did you have anything to do with arranging that visit?
No.
Did you become aware, can we bring up 1001-2017, please? And under plan near the bottom? Okay. So this is not your note. This is say her name, please.
Koala?
Poala, thank you. Poala Padrone's note, correct?
Yes.
So were you involved at all with the incident where 2 women came in that were not previously approved?
No.
Okay, from the church. All right. Let me ask you a question. What is medical foster care?
So medical foster care is any child that might have medical needs, and that can be from medication to a vent or to having to administer medications for diabetes, or so they have significant medical needs. And instead of going to a regular foster care home where there might be 4 other children, they would go to a medical foster care home, and that medical foster care parent would take them to doctor's appointments, coordinate with the parents all of the medical kinds of things that were going on for the child.
So was Maya Kowalski a situation where if she was in an outpatient program that she would need to be, while she's being sheltered, that she would need to be in a medical foster home?
Yes.
Objection leading.
So, okay. What would be, with respect to Maya Kowalski and her situation, what would be her requirements if she was in an outpatient program while still being sheltered by DCF?
Sure. Maya would have had to have gone to a medical foster care home because she was in a wheelchair. She couldn't have gone to a regular foster care home because she would have needed more help.
This is chapter 39, way beyond scope.
Okay, that question is allowable.
Yeah, I'll move on, Jackie. At some point, can we bring up 1001-2007, please? Were you familiar who Mike Kelly was with respect to Maya Kowalski?
Yes.
And what's your understanding of who Mike Kelly was?
He was the children's attorney in the beginning.
Is this your note? Let me find you. Yes, this is your note, correct?
Yes.
So, looking at the bottom of that, did Maya tell you something with respect to what her attorney advised her?
Yes, she said that her,
Objection in chapter 39.
On that one.
Sure.
Kind of the attorney.
Can you go ahead and put that down? Ms. Beatty, do you recall around December 6th of 2016 that there was a new attorney Mark Zimmerman?
I do.
Do you recall when he arrived arranging for him to meet with Maya in the PICU conference room?
I do.
When Mr. Zimmerman on occasion would come in, at that point in time to meet with Maya, was Maya at a high-risk fall status?
Yes, she was.
And what was the requirement with respect to whether or not Maya's door had to remain open?
So if wherever she was, the door would have to remain open and someone would have to keep eyes on her in case she fell again.
Did you ever lurk outside the door trying to listen in on the phone call with Mr. Zimmerman and Maya?
No. The way that our units are set up, there would be a nursing station outside of Maya's room. And so I would sit there and do notes because you had to escort that person to bedside and then escort that person from bedside downstairs.
Okay. When the phone calls with Beata Kowalski started to be allowed in November. Were you supervising those calls?
No.
Who was supervising those calls?
DCF.
Okay. I want to play an audio for you. And the question at the end is going to be whether or not that's you on the call.
Okay.
3217. You know what? Hold on. That's not right. Here it is. 2608. And there should be 4 segments. Let's just start with A.
Okay, I'm recording this phone call so everybody knows. Okay, hi mommy. Hi honey, how are you, sweetie pie? I'm hurting, I miss you. I miss you so much too. I miss you so much every day. Every single day.
You know how happy it makes me feel to hear your voice.
Same here. I miss you so much, and I am so happy that I'm finally able to hear your voice too. Yeah.
I hope you.
What did you say, sweetie?
I hope I can see you soon.
I would love to see you soon. I would love to see you soon. We just have to wait for the judge to make the decision, okay? As soon as he makes the decision, then I'll be able to see you. Okay?
Brianna?
Yeah.
We're not allowed about the case, okay? Maya, honey, we're going to talk about what you've been doing, if you need any Shopkins or things like that, if you had nice visits with your daddy, but we can't discuss the case, okay, honey?
All right, thank you. That was the first call that Maya was able to have with her mom.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, first of all, is that your voice on the call?
No, that's the DCF case manager, Charlotte Laporte.
Okay. Can we bring up 3217A, 0569? And can we go to, I think, the 4th page, so maybe 72057, 0569. 0569. I probably said it wrong. And can we go to 0572? Okay, so do you see that this is an email from Ms. Laporte to Beata Kowalski?
Yes.
Okay. And dated November 16, 2016?
Yes.
Okay. And it indicates that yesterday when you're on the phone, I had to redirect. Do you see that?
I do.
And were you copied on this string of emails?
I was.
Any question in your mind that was Ms. Laporte on that phone call?
No.
Any question in your mind it wasn't you?
No.
Explain to the jury why you were involved at all in that phone call.
So we had to have a phone that could do 3-way calling because DCF would call in to a phone. We would put Maya on, then DCF would call in to Mom, is my understanding of how it worked. So and also DCF wanted Maya on speakerphone. So our phones actually had that function, whereas the bedside nurses and the regular room phones didn't have that function.
So was it your work phone?
Yes, my work cell phone.
So on this particular day, Ms. Laporte would contact with you, and then there would be contact made with Beata Kowalski.
Correct.
And you would then give the phone to Maya?
Correct.
And where would you be?
So sometimes the way the rooms were set up, there was a computer station with a chair in the room, and I would do my notes while the call was going on. The reason I did that was...
Well, let me ask you, why were you so close to the phone or in the room or nearby?
Sure. So I covered the pediatric intensive care unit and the cardiac care intensive unit. So that was a total of 40 beds, 48 beds. So if my phone went off, then I would have had to have gone to whatever was happening at that time. There were also times that I covered the emergency room too. So we were a little bit understaffed and there was a lot going on.
Were you the only social worker that was involved in helping to arrange these calls?
No.
Who else would have been involved?
Whoever was on the weekend would have been involved. I think Paula was involved.
What about Nancy Venn?
Yes, Nancy Venn was the Saturday social worker.
Prior to December, let me get the date. Did you supervise 2016? Did you supervise any calls between Maya and Beata?
Prior to what date?
December 16, 2016.
No.
When can we go ahead and play 2608B, please?
How you doing? How is CP and OP going for you? Not good.
Okay. Bianca, we can't discuss any of those type of matters, okay?
Okay.
Again, this is the same phone call from November 15th, 2016 with Ms. Laporte on the call, but she redirected her at that time. Did you, on the couple occasions that you supervised a call, have to redirect?
There were a couple.
And what was the intent behind redirecting Ms. Kowalski?
Can I see my note?
Yes. 1 second. That's not it. Can we bring up 1001-1981? And at the bottom under plan. And is this a note by you?
It is.
On January 5th, 2017?
It is.
And were you supervising FaceTime call with Mom?
I was.
And during that call, did you have to redirect her?
I did.
And why did you redirect her?
Mom started speaking in Polish, and that was part of the rules, is that Mom couldn't speak in Polish to Maya.
Okay, thank you. So what was the intent? Were you intending to try to disturb the call or cause harm?
Oh, no. No. I just wanted Mom to speak in English so that we were following all the rules that were set up.
Were there times when you would receive cards or letters from Beata Kowalski for Maya?
They would come through the case manager, yes.
Yeah. Well, how would you get them? That was
Okay.
my question.
So the case manager she would review everything, and then she would email it to me, and then I would print it out and take it to Maya's room.
Do you recall a birthday card?
Yes.
So, how did you receive the birthday card from Beata Kowalski to give to Maya?
So it was scanned into an email from Charlotte Laporte.
So did you receive the original card?
No.
And what did you do when you received the scanned-in card?
I printed it and took it up to Maya's room.
Did you, in fact, advise Jack Kowalski that you had done that you'd given him the card?
I did. I sent an email.
All right. Were there times when you would receive letters or pictures that originated from Beata Kowalski, made it to Charlotte, and then to you, where there was a delay in you receiving them?
Yes.
And when you got them, what would you do with them?
As soon as I got them, because I knew that they were important to her, I would go ahead and print them and take them to her.
Okay. Can we bring up 30, let me make sure. Too many papers, I lost my note. Okay. Can we bring up 3217784, please? So I want to talk about some dresses, Christmas dresses.
Sure.
Okay. So did you receive an email from Mr. Kowalski? It's up in front of you. The bottom half, please. On December 22nd, asking about dresses that he had dropped off for Christmas.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did he indicate to you specifically that Maya had requested for him to bring her red dress for Christmas?
Yes, it does.
All right. And go ahead and do the top half, please. And does this refresh me? What do you recall about these dresses and what happened to them in your involvement?
So once I got the email from him, I went to find the dresses. And they were actually in the social work office. And then I took them to Maya.
Okay. Did you take them or did Paula take them?
I think Paula took them.
But in any event, were they dropped off when you were not working?
Yes.
Okay. And then did you communicate with Mr. Kowalski about the dresses?
Yes.
And what did you advise him?
That we had gotten the dresses to her.
Including the special red dress for Christmas?
Yes.
Can we bring up 1001, 1989? Do you see this note on December 23rd, 2016?
I do.
And to your knowledge, is that talking about those same dresses?
Yes.
And who is Paula Padron again?
She was one of the other social workers.
Can we bring up, please, 34032? And this is a picture of December 24th, 2016. Would that be one of the dresses that was dropped off?
Yes.
And can we see 34033? This is taken December 25th, 2016. Is that another of the dresses that was dropped off?
Yes.
The red dress. Do you recall any dress that was a special Hilfiger dress with blue and white?
No, I don't.
Were all the dresses that were dropped off by Mr. Kowalski at this time delivered to Maya?
Yes.
Were you, without getting into the details of them, throughout the 3 months that Maya was sheltered at All Children's Hospital, involved in multiple attempts to try to get Maya transferred to another facility?
Chapter 39.
That's the Ms. Beatty, did you ever tell Maya that her mother was in a mental institution?
No,
Did you ever tell her she was never going to go home to her mother?
no,
Did you tell Maya it was all in her head?
no,
Did you ever tell Maya that she couldn't play with other children?
no. In fact, I would see Maya playing down. We had an area of the hospital on the second floor that was the kids' child life playroom, and I would see Maya down there often. I walked back and forth between the two buildings, and I would see Maya down there playing with the other kids.
Did Maya like chocolate cake?
She did.
And where would she get the chocolate cake?
So the chocolate cake from the hospital, we would bring it from the cafeteria.
Did you ever tell Maya that you were going to bake her a chocolate cake if she did well in physical therapy?
Absolutely not.
When you would be in the room when phone calls were being supervised by DCF and they were using your phone and you were in there, would you make faces or roll your eyes or make comments?
No, never.
Did you ever tell Maya that you were worried that she couldn't have a computer because you were worried she would visit a porn site?
No.
With respect to Mr. Kowalski, were all your interactions with him cordial?
Yes.
Did you ever suggest to Mr. Kowalski that he should divorce his wife?
No, I never suggested that.
Did there do you recall on January 6, 2016, taking pictures of Maya Kowalski?
I do.
Tell us, and we're going to look at the pictures and go through it in detail, but generally speaking, why were you taking pictures of Maya?
So the attending for that week was Dr. Danielson, and Dr. Danielson wanted to go ahead and document the condition of her skin before she left the hospital and then when she got back to the hospital.
Was she being actually discharged that day and then being readmitted?
Yes.
And do you recall why she was leaving that day?
She was going to see Dr. Hannah, and then she was going to court. And
do you recall which family member was picking Maya up?
Yes, her uncle Scott and his wife Wendy.
So let's talk about that. Did you have any assistance in taking the pictures in the morning?
Yes.
And do you recall who that was?
It was the bedside nurse.
Okay. If I said Miss Alcide, would that ring a bell at all?
I just know it was the bedside nurse.
Did you and the bedside nurse go in the room together?
We did.
Before you and, I'm just going to ask you to assume it was Nurse Alcide. Before you and Nurse Alcide went into the room, did you first go into the room and have a private conversation with Maya?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Okay. Did you go into the room prior to you and Nurse Alcide going in the room to talk to Maya about the photographs?
Objection leading. The same question.
She can answer that question.
No, I talked to the bedside nurse and explained to her what Dr. Danielson wanted to have happen, and then we went in together and talked with Maya.
Was risk management aware that these photos were being taken?
Yes.
Can we bring up 2123, 833? This is dated January 5, 2017. Is this emails regarding the photos?
Yes.
Okay. It indicates that Ms. Condon suggested two persons would be in the room while this was done.
Correct.
Okay. So is this talking about the photos that were being done before Maya Kowalski left?
Yes, and when she came back.
Okay. Well, let's bring up exhibit. Paper challenged. 3217, 850, and 851B. Okay, so do you recall about what time the photos were taken in the morning before she went?
So they were taken around 10.
10 in the morning?
Yes.
Before she left for
Right.
Okay, so these emails dated, the first one, 850, is dated January 6, 2017 at 6:17 in the evening.
Correct.
Okay, and then 3217051B is at 7:36 p.m. the same date.
Yes.
What is it you're communicating to Ms. Condon with respect to the photographs when she got back?
That the pictures are done and that I'm locking the camera in my office over the weekend.
Do you use the same camera to take the before pictures and the after pictures?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the actual pictures taking session themselves. Let's bring up, if we can, please. Uh, 2604 007. Do you recognize that as one of the pictures that you took?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is that Maya?
Yes, that's Maya.
And it appears that she does not have her shirt on.
Correct.
What is she wearing?
She's wearing her sports bra.
And what was she wearing on the bottom?
Shorts.
Did you have anything? Who removed the shirt?
The bedside nurse.
Have you ever removed any clothing off of Maya Kowalski?
No.
Whose responsibility would it be to assist if Maya needed some assistance in either getting in or getting out of clothes?
That would have been the bedside nurse.
Objection overruled.
Tell me what you recall about the pictures that were being taken in the morning before Maya left with her uncle.
So the bedside nurse helped remove just her t-shirt, and then I took the pictures, and then I left the room, and Maya got ready to go for her uncle to come and pick her up to take her to Dr. Ham's office.
Were you in the room at all while Maya was getting dressed in another outfit?
No.
Let's bring up 2604006. Is this a picture that you took?
Yes.
And this is one of the ones before she went to church?
Yes.
Before she went to
Yes.
court?
To court.
Okay. And do you recognize that was the bedside nurse there?
Yes.
Okay. Was Maya happy?
No, she wasn't happy about it.
Did she cooperate?
Yes, she cooperated.
Was there any screaming or shouting?
None.
Did either you or Nurse Arcide have to hold her down?
No.
Can you bring up 2604008, please? And 2604018, side by side. Do you recognize these pictures as being part of the one on the left in the white and the pink as being part of the set that you took before she went to court?
The white one was before she went to court.
And what about 2604018?
Is what she had on when she came back from court.
Okay. What was the purpose of taking pictures when she came back from court?
Again, we were documenting the skin issues, if there were any.
All right, let's bring up 2604004. Do you see Maya's hands?
I do.
Do you see another hand in there?
I do.
Do you know whose hand that is?
I don't.
When Maya came back, thank you, Clive. When Maya came back from court, how did that picture session go with Maya?
It went really good. It went pretty quick.
Any holding down?
No.
Maya? Any screaming?
None.
One minute, Karen. We were talking about the close, that there was a social worker's office.
Yes.
Do you, was that yours, or was it an office for all social workers?
It was a kind of like a drop zone for all social workers. We each had our own offices off of our units.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ron.
So we're clear, Ms. Beatty.
Mr. Anderson, do you want to take a break now, or do you,
Yes, this will be longer than usual.
members of the jury, let's go ahead and take a mid-morning break. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information. Let's try to keep this to 10 minutes.
All rise. Jurors exiting.
The jury is out of our presence. In a moment, we're going to leave for our break, but let me just ask, on Dr. Wyndham, I was a little confused as to what I was supposed to do. Everyone, feel free to sit down. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You know she's free.
You
to
can
use
go
the
use the
bathroom.
restroom and all that. It's just wrong. I'll read the whole thing as it says. This is just wrong. Lieutenant wanted us to pass on our condolences for the Gators and to remind you that the Seminoles are 8-0. It's just wrong on so many levels. And then it says also if we could leave by 4 to 4:30 so I can be with my son and daughter, that would be awesome. So I think we'd already established that we would have to finish by 4 tomorrow for Halloween.
Oh, we were waiting actually, Norman, for you were going to tell us what time.
I think 4 o'clock is when we need to.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to Dr. Wyndham. It seemed that there was some sort of residual, you just don't want it played at all?
Right.
Why?
We think it has zero relevance to any issue in the case. We provided specific object or counter designations to the extent the court disagrees, but it's an hour just discussing Maya's allergies and history of treatment for asthma. It has zero relevance to what's going on here. So we just think it's a complete waste of time.
And we don't want to be charged with the. Did the court get a chance to read our motion for additional time?
We're not going to do that right this second because we're going on break, but I mean, they're going to be charged the time for their designation, so why does it matter?
Well, because we're coming down here to try to get this case in by Wednesday, sounds like perhaps Monday, and we think, in short, we think it's a tactic. It's irrelevant.
At the end of the day, if they want to call this witness, I think the defense gets to choose who they're going to call to defend themselves as opposed to the plaintiffs telling the defense who they have to call.
It's just a relevant objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to overrule that. Now, I know that there were defendants' objections to the designations. Were there any plaintiff objections other than just a generalized?
No, it's okay. There's no objections to the testimony other than relevance.
Okay, I'll have my assistant send around my rulings with respect to those few objections that were actually submitted. Is there anything else with respect to Dr. Wyndham?
No.
Okay, let's be back in about 7 or 8 minutes.
All rise, court is in recess.
Court has reconvened.
Okay, please be seated, everyone. Anything we need to address before we bring the jury back in?
Not from defense, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Let's bring in the jury. Members of the jury, I want to confirm while you're away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves. You did no investigation and received no information. Is all that correct? Okay. And with respect to the note that was sent, we should be able to break at 4 p.m. tomorrow. If anyone thinks that that's too late for wherever you need to go, let me know. But I think we're going to plan at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And with respect to the Florida and Florida State, I will just have to say Florida's got FSU right where we want them. Yes. There we go. Now, all kidding aside, let's get back to serious stuff. Mr. Anderson.
You testified you were Roman Catholic. Isn't it true that in the 90s you were actually part of First Christian Church?
I was.
That's not a Catholic church, is it?
No, at the time I was married to a preacher.
It was recently. All right. So on the photos then, according to your testimony, and tell me if I'm wrong here, everything went pretty smoothly. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
And you were pretty positive at the time that you were doing the right thing. Would that be true?
I was doing what risk management asked us to do, yes.
Because risk management told you to do it, right?
Yes.
We'll get into that in a moment. But really, though, you felt that the whole thing you did was very unfortunate. Isn't that true?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, do you remember your deposition of January 30th, 2019?
Can you refresh my memory?
Sure. Yeah, I'm coming. I actually have it on video, but. Looking for my page number, sorry. Sorry, I have it right here. They're going to find the page number, and I'll move right back. But, so we're certain you felt that this was, is that it? Sorry. Page 232, line 8 to 235, line 4. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm sorry, did you say 232?
232 to 235.
232 to 235.
You wanted to read 4 pages. Objection, Your Honor, it's improper impeachment.
Well, she asked to refresh her recollection, so right now I think we're talking about refreshing recollection, not impeachment.
Where am I
It's
starting?
fine.
Having now read that sworn testimony, would you like to correct or change the testimony you just gave the jury?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the way the question's phrased.
Having had your recollection refreshed, would you agree that you stated unfortunately as to the photo session?
So I think it's always an unfortunate thing when we have to do something like that.
And Maya did not want you to do it, did she?
She did not.
She was crying, was she
She
not?
wasn't crying.
She was very upset.
She was upset.
And she kept telling you no.
She did not.
You sure she didn't say no? And where did you get permission to do this?
I'm not sure.
Objection, Your Honor. Reapproach.
Hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to sustain the objection. You may continue, Mr.
Did you have, sorry, Judge, did you have any permission from her parents?
We didn't have permission from her parents. We had permission from DCF, who was actually at that point the guardian of the child.
Well, the parents still had rights to the medical care, did they not?
They had rights to medical care.
All right. So why were you doing this? Was this for medical care, or was this for some other reason?
So Dr. Danielson wanted to make sure and document her skin, the condition of it, before she left the hospital and when she came back.
I thought you just said it wasn't for medical reasons.
It's not medical reasons.
Okay. Well, would you agree the parents still had their medical rights?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Would you agree that it's against the Johns Hopkins Bill of Patients' Rights to not obtain that consent to a procedure?
So once the child's placed in
Is that a yes
DCF
or no?
custody,
And you need to answer the question that's actually asked.
so it depends.
It depends on what?
So once the child was placed in DCF custody, any permission that I needed to get, I got from DCF. That's how that works.
Well, the jury will read the orders, but the orders state that the parents can still have medical control. You understand that?
Objection, Your Honor. Call for legal conclusion.
Sustain.
Would it refresh your recollection? And have you seen the court's?
No. Objection.
All right. You admit that you put Maya on your lap, do you not?
I do.
And are you a member of the National Association of Social Workers?
I'm not a member of the National Association of Social Workers, no.
Were you at the time of your deposition in 2019?
I may have, yes.
And you had to adhere to their code of ethics?
Yes.
And are you aware of what their code of ethics say as to physical contact with a child?
I don't know exactly what they
Would it
say
refresh
today.
your recollection if I showed you?
Sure.
May I approach?
Do you have can I see
Yes,
your
it's section
approach?
1.
Can you just show it to her?
It's in evidence.
Can I see it? Thank you. You're allowed to see it.
I've read it.
Would you agree that you as a social worker should not engage in physical contact with and was Maya a client?
She was a patient.
Okay. Would you agree that you should not engage in physical contact with a patient when there's a possibility of psychological harm to them?
So Maya was very upset.
Yes or so? Yes or no?
Well, it depends.
All right. Social workers who engage in appropriate physical contact are responsible for setting clear, appropriate, and culturally sensitive boundaries that govern such physical contact, correct?
Correct.
And you did not.
I feel I did.
You did not contact the parents.
No, I was asked by DCF to go in.
And a 10-year-old cannot.
finish your answer, please?
Go ahead and finish.
I was asked by DCF to go in and tell her she wouldn't be able to go home for Christmas. She was extremely emotionally upset and crying.
That is not authorization to put a child on your lap, is it?
I don't need authorization to comfort and provide support for a little girl who just found out she's going to have to stay in the hospital through Christmas.
Didn't your code of ethics at that time say that you were supposed to establish some boundaries and get some authorization to do so?
There's nothing about authorization to do so. And providing boundaries, the boundary is that on an everyday practice, you're not doing things like that. But children often need comfort, and so we do comfort kids.
Even in circumstances where the child simply doesn't like you.
Well, that wasn't how I read the situation. Maya was often engaging with me. She asked me to come in the room. She asked me to pray with her.
Then why would it be that witnesses here have said that her dislike for you was coming off in waves
Objection.
when they saw?
Misstates the evidence and improper question.
In truth, Maya did not like you at all, did she?
I don't know that. When she was at the hospital, she often engaged with me. We laughed together. We played with Shopkins together. We read prayer cards together.
Maya did not like you touching her, did she?
She never told me that.
You know, you said you were pretty confident about all of these things, what you did and didn't do. But you haven't been quite confident of these in the past, such as all of the physical contact, right? Were you allowed to kiss Maya?
No, I didn't kiss Maya.
And didn't you kiss Maya?
No.
And haven't you said before you weren't sure whether you did or not?
Yes.
And you weren't supposed to be hugging Maya, correct?
I don't know in what context that you're asking.
But you'd said before that you were not sure. Is that true?
I would have to see that.
All right. And as to the dresses, were the dresses you gave, you said, were red?
Paola took up whatever dresses were there, and I delivered the rest of whatever dresses were there.
The dress involved was blue and cream. Do you understand that?
I don't.
The evidence before, testimony before this jury, that the dress involved was blue and cream.
Objection, Lee.
What did you deliver a blue and cream dress?
I don't know.
To her?
I don't know.
Was it ever in your office?
I don't know. They were in the social work office.
So if you told Jack Kowalski that you dropped off all of them and failed to drop off the cream and white dress, you would be misleading him, would you not?
Objection, argumentative.
I dropped off all the dresses that we had, and Paola dropped off what dresses that she had.
As to supervision of FaceTime, you weren't required to do that, were you?
We were required to bring in the tablet.
But you weren't required by the order to supervise it, were you?
Objection, calls for legal conclusion.
Overruled on that one.
So we weren't required. Can I see my note?
Well, you want to see the 27th order,
Oh,
December
sure.
27th order?
Sure.
What date are you referring to?
December 27th. May I
I'm
approach
certain,
her?
Mr. Anderson, what it is that you are attempting to show her.
I'm showing her the order of December 10th, and as part of
The judge is asking us to approach.
Show it to Ms. Quarles first, please.
Thank you. Oh, do you want that's it.
Didn't you say that these different FaceTime calls must be supervised by a social worker?
I have a time frame, Judge.
Sure, as of January 6th, 2017.
I would have to see the documentation that you're.
May I approach?
Yes.
So these are the things that I understood that they had.
I have to ask a question.
Oh.
Do you want to put up the actual exhibit?
Yes, you can put it up. It's 3217-0851. It's 3217-0851.
B. Just say B. 0851D, please. 170851B. Is that what you're looking for, Mr. Anderson?
Yes. No, that is not.
Yes, it is. The second top part there.
Do you see the second part there? Maya has FaceTime visit with her mother at 11:05 tomorrow for 30 minutes. That must be supervised by social worker, is that what it says?
Yes, it does.
And at that point, it did not have to be supervised by a social worker, is that correct?
I don't know that.
Say again?
I don't know that.
Okay. Nobody ever told you what the order was?
I would have to see the order.
I use the court's order.
Objection, Your Honor.
Not that, no.
I'll let the jury decide based on their knowledge. All right. If we could, I'd like to get to your corrective action notice, which
Hold on a
is...
second, let me see the attorneys.
Can we bring up trial exhibit 2278-036? And this is the corrective action notice. All right. On direct examination, you spent a lot of time explaining that this was due to what, a disagreement over bringing food to someone?
Objection.
What was it?
Characterization.
What was your reasoning
So,
for the confrontation on direct examination?
so Pam had told this family that she would give them a gas card for $50, or that I would give them a gas card for $50. We weren't allowed to just give out gas cards, and this family lived really close to the hospital, so there were rules around that.
Well, ma'am, let me simply ask you, do you see anywhere in Exhibit 2278-036, and I'll show you the second page, where any of that is actually in the corrective action notice? And can we scroll up and then show the second page? You hand wrote a comment, did you not?
I did.
Taking a look at that, do you see anywhere where you mentioned any of that at the time?
No, I didn't mention any of that at the time.
And this was apparently your third time, was it not, with having confrontations with people?
Objection.
Not that I'm aware of.
Didn't you say that you had to be? Didn't you have to be counseled on 2 prior occasions regarding professional behavior among colleagues?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We'll take a look under previous counseling corrective action. Kathy has been counseled on 2 previous occasions regarding professional behavior among colleagues.
I don't know what that's about.
You just can't remember those?
I don't remember that.
Now, after this, was there any change in your status with Maya Kowalski?
No.
So risk management kept you on, right?
Yes.
You followed Maya Kowalski from floor to floor, did you not?
From the PICU to the 7th floor.
And you were the primary, if not only, social worker that dealt with her. True?
I was the primary. I wasn't the only social worker that dealt with her.
Didn't you ask to be on the team with Maya Kowalski?
I did not.
I'll get to it in a moment. So risk management assigned you to Maya, is that right?
It was my supervisor.
And isn't it true you were researching, I got an approach on this question. You asked to follow Maya, did you not?
No, Edith Gunter asked me to stay on the case. She was my supervisor.
Can we bring up 2123-010? If you look down, it says I'll continue to follow, and then does it say there that one of your, who was Nina Bagby Bishop?
She was the 7th floor social worker.
All right. And did she tell you that she thought you were wanting to continue to follow this child?
She did.
And isn't it true you wanted to continue to follow this child?
No, I didn't, but I was asked to follow this child, but I wasn't going to tell Nina that this was something that had been discussed between Edith and I. That wasn't appropriate or professional at that point.
According to your corrective action, you were complaining that you had responsibilities on 2 different floors. Is that right?
Yes,
And that was putting you under a great deal of stress.
it was.
And you still asked to be on Maya's case, did you not?
I didn't ask.
Overruled.
I didn't ask to be on Maya's case. Edith Gunter asked me to continue with the case. She was my supervisor at the time.
And again, after this, you were still kept on Maya's case, were you not?
I was.
Maya did not want you around her, did she?
She did not portray that to us.
Risk management was deeply involved in all of this, is that right?
Objection, vague.
In your supervision of Maya.
Objection.
Now that you clarified it, I'll overrule the objection.
So I don't know that deeply involved. There were certainly pieces of it that were directed by risk management, but I don't know that deeply involved is the right wording.
Remember giving your deposition on January 30th?
Yes, I do.
And do you remember have to come back to this too. Is it true that you had no training in CRPS at the time you were assigned?
That's true.
So you would not be able to notice any symptoms from the point of view of knowing what a CRPS symptom was?
Well, that wouldn't be my role.
Isn't that true?
That wouldn't be my role.
Okay. And you testified that Maya was yelling and used a bad word, I think, asshole or a-hole or something like that. What drugs was she on at that time?
I'm not aware of what drug she was on.
And why is it through the rest of this period of time, or the rest of the time of the hospital, after this period of time, there isn't a single reference to any of this behavior? Yelling, cursing, anything like that?
So in your notes, we're putting down things that are necessary for the other team members to see and to know what to do. There certainly are times that people become very upset, very agitated. Parents might yell at us. Parents might be very demeaning. Kids might be very demeaning, but it's not stuff that we're going to put in the chart on a routine basis. It's just not. That's not the place for it.
Well, I'm simply asking you one question. Why is it that no other person in that hospital after this date ever said anything about Maya acting out with cursing and yelling language?
I can't speak to anybody else.
Right? And I believe you said that. Do you have the chapel? Or, deposition? Testimony?
Yes.
I'm not sure this is it, but let me see. Right here. But in fact, the chapel was the only place that did not have a video camera. True?
Patients' rooms didn't have a video camera. The chapel didn't have a video camera. That's true.
And didn't you testify previously that you were in the chapel with Maya when taking a call,
You'd have to refresh my memory. I don't know about that.
where it opened up, the phone opened up, and you were on it in the chapel with Maya?
I don't recall that.
Let me show you pages 142 through 145 of your deposition.
No. That's not her. No.
May I approach you?
Your Honor, when we approach.
Haven't you testified that you never went in the chapel?
We went in the chapel. Maya did a court hearing from the chapel with her attorney at one point.
So you were in the chapel with Maya at one point?
I was with her attorney.
I thought you said on direct that you were never in the chapel, period.
I'm sorry. I was never in the chapel alone with Maya.
You, can we bring up 1001-2026? And here you were criticizing Beata, were you not? Look at the middle of the page.
No, I wasn't criticizing anyone.
All right. Did you not say that you had been following her for 2 years? Didn't follow Johns Hopkins recommendations over 2 years?
I did state that.
You never talked to Dr. Kreisman, did you?
I talked to Dr. Kreisman frequently.
You didn't talk to any of the outside physicians before making that statement, did you?
I talked to, for this statement, I probably followed up or looked at the chart and looked to see what was happening because we would do a chart review.
But nowhere in the chart does it say that, does it?
I can't tell you that. I wouldn't have put that unless that was something that was presented to me or something that I saw in the chart review.
In fact, you did not follow up with a single one of the doctors to find out what the reasons for, or even if she did resist this transfer, or Johns Hopkins recommendations.
I'm not sure of your question.
If you were so close to Maya, why is it that so many people, including Maya, said, strike it? Maya strongly disliked you, did she not?
She didn't present that in the hospital.
Sustained unasked answer.
I'm going to let the jury ask some questions for a moment.
It's actually Ms. Crowell's time if you are finished with your questions. Are you finished, Mr. Anderson?
For now, yes, Judge.
Nothing this time.
So it will be the jury's time if the jury has any questions. So you do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. You do no investigation, receive no information, and we'll call you back in a few minutes.
All rise. Jurors exiting.
The jury is out of our presence. Miss Beatty, if you could wait outside, I need to review these outside your presence. Red number 1. please be seated, everyone. Members of the jury, I want to confirm while you're away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves, you did no investigation and received no information. Is that all correct?
Correct.
And no one approached you about this case, is that correct?
Correct.
And you haven't seen any media coverage, is that correct?
Correct.
Members of the jury, I'm going to be able to ask most of the questions. I went over these questions outside the presence of Ms. Beatty. Ms. Beatty. I'll address this note later on, okay? Ms. Beatty, do you recall for verbal let me start it again. Did you call DCF for verbal consent for these photos, or did you have a signed consent for these photos to be taken?
Verbal consent.
And will this be in the medical record for the jury to review?
I think it's in my note, but I'd have to go back and look at my note.
Did these photos ever become part of Maya's medical records?
No.
Who helped you with the second set of photos?
The bedside nurse.
Did you document in her chart the purpose of these photos or the date and time that you completed them?
I'm not sure if I documented them in my chart because these were something that was outside of what we would usually document.
Why would the hospital take a child's first name off the door? Isn't there many children with the first same name?
So I don't know why they pulled all of the nameplates off there, but there are many children with the same first name, but I think usually it was the last name was involved too. And so we wanted to make sure that nobody else was going to attempt to go in the room.
If Maya is using profanity in the hospital, why is it not documented anywhere in her chart?
So the best that I can tell you about that is a lot of times I had teenagers, I had young kids, I had kids from different backgrounds. A lot of times kids use profanity. Unless it was becoming an issue where it was very degradatory, we just gave the kids grace. If it became degradatory or it became that it was very abusive, then we discussed it with the kids and it would have been documented in the chart. We would discuss it with the parents. And it would have been documented in the chart. But it wasn't every day, and this was one time that I remember. I mean, she would get mad at all of us and say things like, she'd just say things, but you give the kid grace. That's a hard situation to be in. I don't want that to follow her forever.
Medical professionals are allowed to put things in quotes, are they not?
Yes.
When you placed Maya on your lap, was there someone in the room to witness this interaction?
There wasn't anyone in the room, but her door was open, and nurses and family members and things like that would walk by during the time that this was going on. So we were always within a sight of people.
Who took the photos when Maya got back from court?
I took those photos.
Was there a second person involved with you taking her returned photos?
Yes, the bedside nurse.
Is that person's name documented?
It would be documented because that person would have done a nursing assessment on her that day.
Prior to October 2016, how much experience did you have with Munchausen's?
That's a good question. So through Suncoast Center, we had a couple of kids that were actually were in foster care because of Munchausen. I had I think 1 or 2 cases before Maya got there, And then afterwards, I had a couple cases. So, throughout the years, usually if you don't work in a pediatric intensive care unit or you're not working in child welfare, you may not see that many cases.
In reference to the code of ethics and you comforting the patient, boundaries, mental harm, you started to state, quote, depends, end quote. Is the jury to take this as the, quote, ethics, end quote, you were to abide to are, in your view, open to your personal interpretation?
So they're guidelines, and with guidelines, they're open to what the situation brings. And many times kids would come up to us for comfort. We might side hug them, we might hold their hand. There were many times that I would be with kids while their procedures were happening, and I would be using skills to help them relax during that time. And I might hold their hand, I might rub their head, I might rub their feet, depending on where they were in the situation. But you weren't doing anything that was invasive. And it certainly didn't happen every day.
During the time of Maya's stay, she testified about being in the hospital chapel. Today, you said that you were never in the All Children's Hospital chapel with Maya. Am I correct in what I heard you say?
So let me clarify. I was in the chapel with Maya and her attorney for a phone call that she did with the court, but Maya and I were never alone in the chapel.
If Maya was transported from her room to the chapel and then back to her room, would there not be, especially during this time, Maya was under a protective order, an entry in the logs of Maya's records of who transported Maya, the time to where, how long, if that, quote, transport staff, end quote, stayed in the time returning to the patient's assigned room, or is it normal not to document the patient's whereabouts?
So it's kind of, for the kids, always the bedside nurse knew where they are, where they were going. If they were going down to the activity center, or say that they were going down, they were there with a visit and with their parent, and they might be going downstairs. So, but the bedside nurse always knew where that child was.
While Maya and her attorney were in the room talking attorney-client protections, were you located anywhere in proximity, even anywhere in the hall to Maya's room, or were you behind the nurse's station counter?
I was behind the nurse's station. If you're talking about Mr. Zimmerman, I was behind the nurse's station.
In the series of before and after photos we have seen again today, I'd like to confirm, after you seeing them freshly today, in the befores, you do not recall the person that assisted you.
I know it was the bedside nurse, but I didn't know her name.
Okay. In the after photos, you do not recall the person that assisted you.
I don't. I know it was the bedside nurse, but I don't know her name.
In both sets of photos, do you recall the name of the patient you were photographing?
Yes, I do.
You testified much of what you did was at the direction of risk management of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. During that time, do you know who was on what risk management advisory board or team?
So risk management was a department, and it's whoever was there. I spoke frequently with Patty, but I also spoke with some of the other risk management people during that time too.
Ms. Croels, do you have any follow-up?
Just briefly. You were asked if you knew the name of the child you were photographing. Who were you photographing?
Maya Kowalski.
With respect to taking photographs, is this the first patient you've had where somebody's been sheltered by DCF?
No.
Is it unusual to take photographs of DCF sheltered children?
Objection. Chapter 39.
I'm going to overrule that one.
So we don't do it often, but sometimes if there's something that we need to document, we go ahead and do it and get it to the CPI or to the DCF people.
Thank you.
That documentation is in the emergency room, is it not?
Objection vague.
Sustained.
The documentation of photographs with other children? Did you say that it happens with other children?
Yes, it can happen with other children.
Those are in instances where somebody has a cigarette burn on them or a broken arm or a cut or something like that. True?
I can't tell you what the circumstances would be. There's many circumstances.
It's not for a situation like this where there are none of those, is it?
That's not entirely true, no.
All right. Who gave you the verbal consent?
It would have been DCF, Charlotte Laporte.
Okay. Well, did you comply with all of DCF's policies of what you have to do before you take the photos?
Objection, Your Honor. Chapter 39.
He opens it up.
The question's going to ask a different question.
Did you comply with Johns Hopkins policies?
I'd have to look at them all the way to see if we complied with everything.
You could publish it, 2277.
Yeah, we're going to publish. Your Honor, it's in evidence. May we publish it?
If it's in evidence, yes.
2277-281A. I'll direct your attention towards the bottom there of the paragraph where there is a 1, a 2, and a 3. Do you see those?
I do see those.
Well, first, do you agree this is a Johns Hopkins requirement?
I see that it's a Johns Hopkins policy.
All right. Then take a look at 1, 2, and 3. Did you attempt to contact the parents? That's the question. First question is, did you attempt to contact the parents?
I did not. But I did contact DCF.
Did you make any further attempts, or at least document it in the record, that you tried to get a hold of the parents?
I didn't attempt to call the parents.
And did you comply with number 3? The actual contact with the parent's legal guardian, advising the parent's legal guardian of consent and treatment authorized by DCF.
I did contact DCF, who was the legal guardian at the time for the child, yes.
No. There was a guardian ad litem appointed, was there not?
The guardian ad litem doesn't have consent.
Did you document anywhere in the file, if the jury was to look, that you tried to contact the GAL?
I wouldn't have contacted the GAL. The GAL is not the guardian.
And in the records, would you agree, there is no analysis of these photos from a medical standpoint?
I don't know that.
So you knew going in that you were, what reason was it then?
Dr. Danielson asked us to document her skin condition.
And you would do that no matter whether it was allowed or not?
Objection argumentative.
True?
Overruled. She can answer that.
So we did this, or I did this because this was asked of us by Dr. Danielson, and it had a good reason for it. If it was not a good reason, I certainly would have been discussing it with the medical team.
Dr. Danielson is not with DCF, is she?
No, she's not.
Charlotte Laporte, did you attempt to get authorization from Charlotte Laporte?
I did get authorization, talked with Charlotte Laporte that day.
You say you did.
Mm-hmm.
So if she testified in this courtroom that you did not, would she be incorrect?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
I don't know. I was talking to her that day, and they were doing their own pictures in Sarasota.
So, go ahead.
And I explained to her that we were doing the photos here at the hospital.
Again, I just need to know, if she says in court that you did not seek any permission from her, is she wrong?
I don't know what she said and what she didn't say.
The reason for the cracked door policy involving attorneys is to make sure that the child, if the child falls, that you can yell, that the child can yell and you can hear them, true?
Correct.
Do you really think her attorney wouldn't help her if she did?
I can't speak to
Objection
that.
argumentative.
Well,
Sustained.
would you agree with me there was a person in there?
I can agree with you, yes. Sure.
A person who had ethical duties to her, in fact, as an attorney.
Well, those aren't the same as medical.
Okay? Well, if she were to have a fall, wouldn't there be somebody right there next to her to help?
I can't speak to that. We left the door open. That was part of the policy. When you had a risk for a fall, you left the door open.
I thought you said there was a lot of discretion in how to follow these.
There are sometimes.
Okay.
Overruled.
Sometimes there can be some discretion, but this is a big one because if she fell and hit her head or fell and broke something,
If she fell and hit her head or fell and broke something, don't you think her lawyer would come out and let you know?
I can only speak to you that we left the door open.
You left the door open,
Yes,
not
I
to
did.
protect Maya, but so you could hear what was going on in there, didn't you?
Absolutely not, because you can't hear from the nurse's station. There are so many beeps and buzzers and phones going off. You can't hear from the nurse's station into a patient's room.
As to the Nurses Association rules of ethics, whether they are, what did you call them, guidelines or not, you violated them, did you not?
Objection argumentative misstates the guidelines he's referencing to for one, but argumentative.
Sustained.
Regardless of how you designate them, you violated those guidelines, did you not?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
No, I did not. I provided comfort to a child who was extremely upset, who was extremely emotional, and who asked for comfort.
Without any authorization from the parents. Why didn't you call the parents?
I'm not sure in that moment that you would stop and call parents. I think you would attend to the child. which
Why
I
not call,
did.
why not call
Sorry, Your
some,
Honor, can
sorry,
you not
she can finish.
interrupt? Can you not
Go ahead.
interrupt the witness?
Yeah, please let her finish the answer.
Yes, sir.
I think you would attend to the situation, attend to the child, and try to provide comfort for the child. I certainly would have not walked out on her to then make phone calls.
Well, for her to be so upset that you had to put her on your lap, this had to be going on for a considerable period of time, didn't it?
It happened pretty quickly because once I said to her that she wasn't going to be able to go home for Christmas, tears came. She was very upset.
My point being that she couldn't get that upset if it was quick, and if it was long, you could call the parents.
So it's reasonable to provide comfort to a child, and that's what I did.
On direct examination, you testified that you could tell between the two photographs which bra Maya had on at the time, the training bra or the other bra, correct?
Right.
You can remember that, but you have no memory of who helped you?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
So that was a long time ago, and I don't remember who her nurses were every day and who helped.
Yes, I know, but the point is, how could you remember all the things you described for the jury on direct examination and forget that?
So I knew how that she had changed clothes to go to court, and I knew that she had, when she came back, she had on different clothes. But I don't remember the bedside nurses' names. I'm sorry.
So, if we're correct, and if the jury were to conclude, say, that this was brutal to do what was happening with these photos, you did it to her twice?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
I can't tell you what the jury's going to find or not find. I certainly didn't do anything to try to be brutal. If anything, we tried very hard to be very professional with Maya. I left the room once we were done so that she could change and get ready to go. And once she was done with the nighttime pictures, she and the nurse, I left the room again for her to get changed for night.
And why wasn't there a time stamp on any of these photos?
I don't know that I understand that question.
Do you know what a timestamp is?
Yeah.
It's in the bottom corner of photographs.
I can't speak to that. I used the camera that they told me.
If the jury were to go search for those photographs in the medical record, they would not find them, would they?
I don't think so.
Nor would they find any consent in the medical records that you called anyone on behalf of the parents.
Objection, argumentative.
True.
Asked and answered.
Sustained, unasked, answered.
It was as to the medical records.
Asked and answered.
Sustained, unasked, answered.
And would you agree with me in the photo showing Maya's face that she did not look happy at all, did she?
Asked and answered on his original
No, I did not.
cross.
Okay, I'm going to overrule that one.
She did not look happy.
She was not happy. Why did you not stop and call the parents?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
You said you got verbal consent. From whom did you get verbal consent?
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
One moment, Lawrence. Are you aware of the terms of the order on December 27th regarding your involvement in supervision?
Objection, outside the scope of where we are.
Sustained.
Nothing further this time.
Ms. Corrales, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, anything further from Please be seated, everybody. Speedy. In the second photo, the hand in the photo does not match the bedside nurse in the first photo. Whose hand is this?
I'm not sure what photo that they're talking about.
Did you document your conversation with DCF for consent?
I'd have to look at my notes.
Did you document your verbal consent with DCF and have another witness on the phone to witness your verbal consent?
I'd have to look at my notes. I don't think I had anyone else with me.
And next question, will that be documented in the medical records for the jury to review?
I'd have to look at my notes.
Does the hospital use a log to log when children are off the floor to keep track of where the children are when they are off the unit and when they return?
Not that I'm aware of.
Are you testifying you do not know if you documented the photographs in the chart, but the bedside nurse would be documented?
So bedside nurses write a note for every day that they're there with the kids, so that name would be documented in the chart, yes.
Is that where we should look for documentation in the chart?
Yes.
Do you know what Maya changed into to wear to court?
I don't.
The person seen holding Maya's hands in the quote before end quote photos has on all black clothing. Would that be the bedside nurse?
Yes, that would have been the bedside nurse.
Did someone else have to hold her down?
No, nobody held her down.
Would that be documented?
I don't know that it would be documented because nobody needed to hold her down.
What role did Dr. Danielson have in Maya's care?
Dr. Danielson was the attending for the week, so that would be her part in the care.
What kind of device were the pictures taken on?
So this was a long time ago. I think it was on a digital camera.
Will the original file images, including encoded properties, be provided for inspection?
I don't know that.
Would there be an entry placed in writing or typed in the patient's log, similar to when a patient is transported to physical therapy or an X-ray?
For what?
Okay, well, I'm going to have to ask the whole thing. Your answer to my question was about the chapel visit. Quote, the bedside nurse always knows where the patient is, end quote. That is a response. Would there be an entry placed in writing or typed in the patient's log, similar to when a patient is transported to physical therapy or an X-ray?
I don't know what the bedside nurse would log.
In reference to the before and after photos of Maya, you were testifying that those photos were taken with a hospital official camera. Is that correct?
Yes.
And no personal cameras or photos were used. Is that correct?
Yes. No personal cameras were ever used for any of our kids.
Ms. Crowell, anything further based on the jurors' questions? Mr. Anderson, anything?
You testified a lot about consent, but you did not comply with the policy except through Charlotte Laporte, correct?
Asked and answered.
It's predicate.
Overruled.
I'm
All
not
right.
sure what you're asking.
Is Dr. Danielson on the risk committee?
I don't know that.
All right. Afterwards, did you document all of the things you testified to in the record?
Objection, Dave.
Overruled.
I don't know what you're asking.
would it refresh your recollection to see how you documented what you did with Maya in an email, a memo you sent around immediately after?
Sure.
You pull it up.
Yes, what's
It's
the?
in evidence. It's 100294, and the second page is 95. No, that's not it. It's 194 and 195. There you go. Now, let's bring the second one up if we can. Take a look at these now. And first tell me, was this your documentation of what you did after you did it?
Just the date of this one. That's blah.
Where in here does it explain anything of what you said you did?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, you don't say in here that you obtained consent from risk management, does it?
I'm not sure I would obtain consent from risk management.
Does it say that you got any consent from anyone?
I'd have to look at my emails from that day too.
Did you bring those emails?
No.
Would you agree with me that if you had done all the things you said you did, it would appear in here more likely than anywhere?
I can't say that it would.
Well, then why did you do it?
I don't understand your question, Mr. Anderson. Let's not use so many pronouns.
Yes, sir. Then who took this information?
Objection, vague.
This is as to 1002-1094.
Objection, vague.
I'm just talking about the whole thing.
Why don't you be more specific with your questions?
All right. In this exhibit, 1002-0194, in the middle, it says actions taken or intervention completed. Do you see that?
That wasn't my note.
I see. And so where would the person putting this down get this information?
Objection, vague.
Sustained.
If not you? Who else could give this information? The entire thing.
Sustained.
Objection, vague.
It says here that Maya reports she would like to pray. Do you see that?
The note that's up on mine is my note, and I don't see that.
It's in the middle right there. It says she left the room moaning, bending at the hip, using her legs to move. See that?
I do see that.
That was not testified to in direct examination, was it?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Crowell, is anything further?
Just briefly. So the record you just looked at, 0995, established that you took the pictures before she left. Uncle Scott was taking her, and you took the pictures when she came back.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Anderson?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, anything else? Looks like I've got At least one more question coming. Ms. Beatty, should the documentation of obtaining consent be part of a medical record for any procedure done on a patient?
It can be, and yes, it can be part of the medical record. And we would, if when we get consent, we would have put it in the chart. But it's a different form, and it might be in another part of the chart.
Anything else?
No.
Anything else?
But you have no idea where that is, correct?
Oh, I know, it would be under consents. There's always a consents tab within the chart.
Anything further from the jury? Okay, members of the jury, I think this is probably a good time to break for lunch. Have them back to go at 1:40. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information.
All rise. Jurors exit.
The jury is out of our presence. Is Ms. Beatty excused from all subpoenas, or does she need to stay under subpoena?
She's excused.
From?
Yeah, she's excused.
Okay, so she's free to go?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting she's not part of them anymore. No, not released at this point.
She's not under your subpoena. Oh, she is.
Okay.
Well, once
You're
it's-
still subject to the subpoena, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay? But you're free to go today. Okay, let's,
So can I just explain something to her? So.
can you just wait?
Sorry, you're on.
No problem.
Are you?
Here, can I finish us up
Sorry.
so we can let everybody go? And feel free to sit down if you want. The note I received from the jury probably 30 minutes ago, one of the jurors indicated that her daughter is going to get an award on November 8th, and the parent needs to let them know if the daughter can go, and the parent would have to be in that location, which is probably 35-45 minutes away from here at 4:45. Bottom line is on the 8th. I didn't get the person who sent this, so I don't know if this is a person that's actually deliberating or not. I'm just saying that if that person deliberates, we might end up having to address the length on the 8th. Now, that also brings us up to a bigger question of how we seem to continue to slow down. We seem to go even slower when we try to speed up. So where are we on the defense finishing its case in chief?
Well, Judge, I will say that we're trying to get through as many witnesses as we can. Obviously, the cross-examination length and juror questions, I thought we would be through Ms. Beatty and a deposition this morning. So we're trying to get through everything. We do not believe that we will be finished. We're aiming for Wednesday midday at this point, Judge, because we're stopping at 4 today. We're stopping at 4 tomorrow.
As soon as they're not getting more time,
Yeah, I mean, assuming, depending on the lengths of the cross.
When we get back from lunch, I'm going to want a preview of who's coming the
Sure.
next 3 days, 2.5
Sure.
days.
Sure.
And I'm also going to need to know from the plaintiffs what you're looking for purposes of your rebuttal case, and then we need to talk about time.
Yes.
So I need to know all of that when we come back from lunch. Let's come back at 1:15, and we'll have that conversation. Is there anything else we need to address before we leave today?
4 o'clock's when you.
4 o'clock today for jury instructions.
Nothing for the defense, sure.
Anything from the plaintiffs?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, see y'all at 1:15.
All rise, closing recess.